Today's lesson is on how do we solve equations. Solve the following equation. Negative 3, parentheses 1, plus 6r equals 14 minus r. Take a second to copy down the question. So when we're solving equations, we're going to use our same steps every time. My first step is to simplify the left. So I'm going to distribute the negative 3. When I distribute the negative 3, I have negative 3 minus 18r equals 14 minus r. Now I've finished simplifying the left. Now I look to see if I simplify the right. There's nothing for me to simplify on the right. So I ask myself, what side are the variables on? The variables are on both sides. So I decide I'm going to move my variables to the right-hand side. So I can add r and add r. My negative 3 comes down. Negative 18r plus r is negative 17r equals 14, and negative r plus r cancels out. Since I moved my variables to the left, I'm going to move everything else, my constants, to the right. So I'm going to add 3 and add 3. Negative 3 plus 3 cancels out. I'm left with negative 17r equals 17. So now my final step is to divide. So I'm going to divide by negative 17, divide by negative 17. Negative 17 divided by negative 17 cancels out. So I'm just left with r equals 17 divided by negative 17 is negative 1. So I have r equals negative 1. The second question. Solve the equation. Negative 16 plus 5n equals negative 7 parentheses negative 6 plus 8n plus 3. Take a second to copy down the question. Since I'm solving an equation, I'm still doing the same process. I'm going to simplify the left. There's nothing for me to simplify on the left, so I can bring down my left-hand side. Now I check the right-hand side. The right-hand side, I have to distribute, so I can distribute my negative 7. Negative 7 times negative 6 is a positive 42. Negative 7 times a positive 8n is a negative 56n, and then plus 3. I still look to see if I have to simplify the right-hand side. I have like terms. I have 42n plus 3. Since they are on the same side, I do not have to do the opposite. I can just combine them. 42 plus 3 is 45, and then minus 56n. Now, I have finished simplifying my right-hand side. The next question I ask myself is, what side are the variables on? The variables are on both sides. I decide I'm going to move my variables to the left-hand side. So I can add 56n, add 56n. That gives me negative 16 comes down. 5n plus 56n gives me a 61n equals 45. Since I moved my variables to the left, I need to move everything else to the right. So I'm going to add 16 and add 16 to both sides. This cancels out. I'm left with 61n equals 45 plus 16 is equal to 61. So now my last step is to divide by 61 on both sides. 61 divided by 61 cancels out. I'm just left with n equals 61 divided by 61 is 1. So I have n equals 1. And the last question, solve the following equation. 10 parentheses x plus 3 minus parentheses negative 9x minus 4 equals x minus 5 plus 3. Take a second to copy down the question. So, since I'm solving an equation, it is going to be the same process. I'm going to first simplify my left-hand side. In order to do that, I have to distribute my 10. 10 times x is 10x. 10 times 3 is a plus 30. Then I'm going to bring everything else down. I continue to look to see if I have to simplify my left-hand side. I have a negative imaginary 1 here, so I have to distribute my negative 1. 10x plus 30 comes down, and then I'm left with negative 1 times negative 9x gives me a positive 9x. Negative 1 times negative 4 gives me a plus 4, equals x minus 5 plus 3. I still look to see if I have to simplify my left-hand side. I have like terms, 10x plus 9x. 10x plus 9x gives me 19x. Plus 30 plus 4 gives me plus 34. Equals, I still did not do anything to my right-hand side. Now I look to see, my left-hand side is fully simplified. Now I have to see if I have to simplify the right-hand side. My right-hand side, I have two like terms, negative 5 and plus 3. 19x plus 34 can come down. That's equal to x. Negative 5 plus 3 gives me a negative 2. The next question I ask myself is what side of the variables I'm. The variables are on both sides. I'm going to move my variables to the left-hand side. So I can subtract x from both sides. When I subtract x, 19x minus x is 18x plus 34 equals negative 2. X minus x cancels out. Since I moved my variables to the left, I need to move everything else to the right. So I'm going to subtract 34 and subtract 34. When I do that, 18x comes down. 34 minus 34 cancels out, equals negative 2 minus 34 is negative 36. Now my last step is to divide by 18. 18 divided by 18 cancels out. I'm just left with x equals negative 36 divided by 18 is equal to negative 2. So I have x equals negative 2.